how's it going? Got a little background music from YouTube Studios, free, no copyright. This is going to be Chapter 1 to Antarctica. This is the navigator who crossed the ice walls. It's the gentleman right there. So let's get right into this. Chapter 1 to Antarctica. My name is William Morris, and the story that you are about to read is probably going to modify the current way of seeing the world. I know most of the people will find it incredible, and believe me, even having experienced this adventure, having seen it with my own eyes and with all my senses, it was also incredible to myself, but the evidence is irrefutable. For those who want to see it and the memory is indelible, such evidence will be presented and science will also change its perspective. Another path will be open in the human mind forever. As for my personal life, I was a member of the Continental Navy, as the American Naval Force was called in the Revolutionary War. I was married to Lucy, and we were thinking of enlarging the family, but the war postponed every plan, as it usually does. With that pain that probably felt cutting the root of that shining tree that gives life to the garden, that immense pain that produces to move away from your loved ones and go to hell itself. One peaceful night after the surrender of Saratoga, we were sailing through the northern Atlantic Ocean, rounding the islands on our way to Charleston Harbor. The full moon was the only light that illuminated our way, and during that night, thousands of stories and anecdotes arose among the boys over a little whiskey to calm the anxieties of raw war. Even then, there was talk of James Cook's voyages and his obsession with crossing the Antarctic Circle. Y'all look into James Cook, all right? Although it was not clear who was behind his funding or why the obsession, as I was not well steeped in the subject, the talk had not captivated me enough. I did not pay much attention to the boys and who went on with the stories. Captain Butler, well respected in the group, joined the selling stories by commenting that it was possible that there was a passage somewhere in the polar circle, and that this passage could be the connector to other worlds. He said it seriously without a moment's hesitation. My attention turned to him, and the 5 or 6 of us in that cabin were speechless. Listening to his story, we expected him to say that it was a joke, but that never happened. We could not believe that a captain was seriously telling that there could be lands behind the Antarctic Circle. Butler commented that he knew from good sources at the highest levels that they were researching the funding voyages to penetrate the harsh climate and barriers in the southern latitudes, to find possible land and perhaps civilization beyond the Antarctic continent, and that they were in a hurry to carry out these missions as many civilian navigators were circling the area and did not look favorably on anyone else coming along. The story was even longer in great detail. He also commented that he observed with his own eyes a map that indicated the coordinates that could be the opening of such a passage. And although he was stupefied by the story, and I think others too, the fatigue and stress generated by a war conflict could not be wasted. It was the perfect moment of happiness that generates a breach of peace to be able to sleep a few hours. Time went by, and after the famous war, many of the ships used by the Continental Navy were rented, destroyed, captured, or sold, as at that time I was a person of good economic standing, especially after a war that we could say triumphant, if after a war can be called so. I made an offer for one of them and managed to keep it, although my colleagues always scoffed at me because of that, as they say it was ridiculously high for such an old ship. The idea of the exploration trip to the south, after Butler's story, generated even more interest for me to bid and keep the ship. Although it needed repairs, therefore some extra money, I felt no guilt as I felt it as an investment. Although I did not know the real danger of such a trip, I needed to provide myself with a great navigation equipment. Although Lucy was not happy, my wife, about this plan, I was planning to leave Charleston by the end of November and head, with a few stops along the way, straight to the Antarctic continent. During the idea of forming the team, I talked to former colleagues. Some of them made the most ridiculous excuses, and I don't blame them either. The idea of such a trip was really not encouraging. 2 of them, who were there that same night that Butler told the story, wanted to join as soon as I told them about the plan. But the most difficult part was to convince Butler, who had knowledge in navigation based on his experience and leadership, and also knew the coordinates where we should go. After gathering courage for a few weeks, I contacted the captain to tell him about my project and add him to the group. It was difficult to convince the captain of such a plan. Although in his voice I noticed some enthusiasm, he declined my offer, and it was like that for a while. Unexpectedly, on the morning of October 11th, he showed up at my home with another companion named Fint. He had maps that I had never seen and was full of documents that very few eyes had read. He told me that he accepted the deal, but that he was willing to understand that it could only be a one-way trip. Then I understood that we had to take this trip professionally. The adventures was about to begin. And in the next video, we'll go on to chapter 2 and read the custodians. I truly appreciate you guys standing by. I'm a pretty good reader. It's just that I've read this so many times. I want to have my own accolades, and I can't do that. I've been around the horn. I've seen things. I've witnessed things. And we'll get into that later on. When the numbers get above 500, and that way I can go ahead and go live. I like to involve people in my communications and conversations. Yet, this right here, this is going to be a very good read. And you're going to very well enjoy it. And I have a few other books coming. And I will be doing this quite often on this channel, reading. All right? And y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you for stopping in. Also, and thank you for the new subscribers who belong to my other channel. And we'll discuss that at a later time. Thank you.